At 3:12, a U.S. Naval fleet detects 14 fast-moving objects at Mach 1.6. But their radar signatures keep vanishing mid-scan, as if something is rewriting them in real time. The fleet is operating near the Philippine Sea, pushing through standard patrol operations when everything changes. The guided missile destroyer leading the formation picks up something on its Aegis radar system. Something that immediately triggers red flags across every workstation in the Combat Information Center. The incoming aircraft have no IFF transponder signals. None. That alone is concerning, but what really grabs attention is how the altitude readings keep shifting. Every single radar sweep shows these objects at different heights, like they're phasing between dimensions or the sensors themselves are being manipulated. The watch team starts cross-referencing data, pulling up backup systems, trying to figure out if they're looking at a malfunction or an actual threat approaching their position. The operators in the Combat Information Center initially think it's a software fault. Equipment fails sometimes, especially when you're dealing with complex electronics in a saltwater environment thousands of miles from home. They run diagnostics, checking calibration protocols, looking for any sign that their instruments are feeding them bad information. But then, something changes. The signatures suddenly tighten into a formation, a precise, deliberate formation that no random glitch would ever produce. These aren't scattered contacts bouncing around the screen anymore. They're organized, they're coordinated, and they're getting closer with every passing second. Then one signature breaks away from the main group. A single Su-30 flanker peels off from the formation and begins a separate approach vector. The really unsettling part? It's broadcasting absolutely nothing. No radio traffic, no identification signals, no standard military communication protocols. Just silent movement through contested airspace. The fighters angle directly toward the fleet. Not a parallel course, not a surveillance pass, but a direct intercept trajectory that puts them on a collision course with American warships. Weapons officers start going through their engagement protocols, fire control systems come online, missile batteries rotate toward the threat axis, targeting solutions start populating across multiple screens. Everyone in the fleet is now at battle stations, fingers hovering over response options, waiting for the order that might start something nobody wants to finish. But then something impossible happens. One of the Su-30 seconds drops 10,000 feet instantly. Not a controlled descent, not an evasive maneuver, but a sudden plunge like gravity just tripled for that one aircraft. The radar track shows it falling straight down before leveling out at a completely different altitude. There's no engine failure signature, no distress call, no indication the pilot intended that movement. It just happens, defying every principle of normal flight operations. Countermeasure drones launch from the destroyer's vertical launch tubes, streaking upward on pillars of flame and smoke. FA-18. Super Hornets scramble from the carrier deck, their engines screaming as they claw for altitude and speed. Catapults slam pilots back into their seats as 30 tons of fighter aircraft accelerate from 0 to 165 miles per hour in under 2 seconds. Multiple destroyers in the formation switch to full combat mode, their phased array radars painting the sky with electromagnetic energy, searching for additional threats, trying to build a complete picture of what they're facing. The air around the fleet fills with jamming bursts, electronic warfare systems throwing up walls of interference to blind incoming missiles. Chaff clouds bloom like deadly flowers, millions of tiny metallic strips spreading through the atmosphere to confuse radar-guided weapons. Missile lock warnings scream in cockpits. Every sensor, every weapon system, every defensive measure the fleet possesses comes alive at once, creating a bubble of lethal technology around the ships. Then the data starts coming back, and it doesn't make any sense. Analysis of the Su-30 targeting systems shows something that shouldn't be possible. The Russian fighters aren't aiming at the US ships. Their fire control radars are locked onto coordinates that contain nothing but empty ocean. They're preparing to engage targets that don't exist, tracking ghosts, lining up attack runs on phantom contacts that appear on their screens but nowhere else. Someone or something is feeding them false information. Their systems are seeing targets that aren't there, and the pilots either can't tell the difference or can't override what their instruments are telling them. The implications hit the intelligence officers like a physical blow. If an external source can inject false targets into a Su-30's avionics, what else can it control? Can it trigger weapons release? Can it override pilot commands? Can it turn an aircraft into a remotely piloted drone without the person in the cockpit even knowing they've lost control? One of the disabled Su-30 seconds starts rolling sideways through the air. There's no smoke trail indicating a hit, no explosion, no visible damage to the airframe. It just rolls, like the pilot has given up or lost consciousness. The fleet's weapons officers are seconds away from calling it a confirmed kill and moving on to the next threat. But then the engines restart. Not with the characteristic sound and thermal signature of a Russian AL-31 turbofan, but with something different. The infrared sensors pick up a heat pattern that doesn't match any known variant of Russian military propulsion technology. The engine restart sequence is wrong, the power curve is wrong, the thermal bloom is wrong, and here's the really disturbing part. The restart appears to be remotely triggered. There's a burst of encrypted data traffic right before the engines come back online, originating from a source that nobody can pinpoint. The aircraft isn't responding to pilot input anymore. It's being controlled by an external system that the person strapped into the ejection seat can't override, can't shut down, can't even properly detect. The Su-30 has become a puppet, and someone else is pulling the strings. Remember that radar glitch from the beginning? The one where signatures kept vanishing and reappearing like something was rewriting them in real time? It comes back. But this time, it's not in the sky with the fighters. It's below the waterline, beneath the surface of the Philippine Sea, tracking alongside the fleet at exactly the same speed they're traveling. The sonar operators pick it up first, a contact that shouldn't exist where their screens say it exists. Submarines don't move like this. Underwater drones don't have this kind of range or speed. Whatever this thing is, it's been pacing the fleet the entire time, staying hidden beneath the waves while the aerial drama played out above. The timing is too perfect to be coincidental. The radar interference started at the same moment this underwater contact appeared. The Su-30 seconds began their approach right when the submerged object matched course and speed with the American ships. Everything is connected, but nobody can figure out how or why. Minutes tick by, and new reports start flooding into the Combat Information Center from Allied command structures across the Pacific. Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force reports identical interference patterns affecting their radar systems near Okinawa. Australian warships operating in the Coral Sea detect the same signature corruption that plagued the US fleet. Indian naval assets in the Bay of Bengal log matching anomalies, with aircraft behaving erratically and sensors reporting impossible readings. Whatever is hijacking systems above the water isn't isolated to one location or one incident. It's appearing across 3 different oceans simultaneously, affecting military forces from multiple nations, all within the same narrow time window. The scope of the operation becomes clear. This isn't a localized event. This isn't one fleet getting unlucky and stumbling into a weapons test or an experimental system. This is coordinated. This is planned. This is global. Someone or something has the capability to interfere with military operations across vast distances, affecting different types of aircraft, different radar systems, different communication networks, all at the same time. The technical sophistication required for that kind of simultaneous multi-theater operation exceeds anything in the known arsenal of any nation. The submerged object finally surfaces on infrared sensors, breaking through the thermal layer that separates warm surface water from the cold depths below. The carrier's surveillance aircraft get a brief lock on it, thermal cameras focusing, trying to capture usable imagery before it disappears again. And what they see doesn't match anything in the recognition databases. It's not a submarine. The shape is wrong, the size is wrong, the way it moves through the water is wrong. It's not a drone. No remotely operated vehicle has the power plant or the control systems to do what this thing just did. But it's definitely a shape, a physical object with defined edges and surfaces. A craft of some kind. And here's what really keeps intelligence analysts awake at night. No nation has ever acknowledged building anything like this. Not in declassified documents, not in leaked reports, not in satellite imagery of shipyards or test facilities. If this is human-made, somebody developed it in complete secrecy. hiding a weapons program that represents a fundamental leap in military technology. If it's not human-made, then the questions become even more uncomfortable, opening doors that most governments would prefer to keep firmly locked and sealed. The object vanishes seconds later, dropping off every sensor simultaneously like it was never there at all. No fade out, no gradual loss of signal, just instant disappearance across multiple tracking systems using completely different technologies. It leaves behind corrupted data files that crash analysis software when technicians try to open them, scrambled telemetry that contains strings of characters that don't correspond to any known encoding system, radio recordings with frequency patterns that shouldn't be possible with conventional transmission methods. And one chilling fact that emerges when intelligence services compare notes across allied nations: every major military power on Earth saw the same anomaly. American ships in the Philippine Sea, Japanese destroyers near Okinawa, Australian frigates in the Coral Sea, Indian carriers in the Bay of Bengal, Russian aircraft in multiple locations, Chinese submarines near the Spratly Islands. All of them detected something. All of them recorded interference. All of them encountered systems behaving in ways that current technology shouldn't allow. And when they all shared data through back-channel intelligence networks, trying to figure out what happened, none of them could explain it. Not the Americans with their satellite coverage and signals intelligence networks, not the Russians with their electronic warfare expertise, not the Chinese with their quantum research programs. Nobody has an answer that satisfies the basic question, what was that thing and who controls it? The incident gets classified immediately, buried under so many layers of security restrictions that even asking about it can end a military career. But the files remain open. Analysts keep working the problem, trying to find patterns, searching for clues in the corrupted data, looking for any explanation that makes sense within the known laws of physics and engineering. Because here's what nobody wants to say out loud: if someone has developed technology this far ahead of anything else in existence, then every assumption about military balance and strategic deterrence just became obsolete overnight. If one nation has this capability, they could win a war before anyone else even knows they're fighting. And if no nation has this capability, if the object came from somewhere else entirely, then humanity has even bigger problems to worry about than which flag flies over which piece of ocean. The Su-30 eventually returned to their base, assuming they were real aircraft with real pilots who thought they'd just flown a normal intercept mission. The American fleet continued its patrol, filing reports that would be read by increasingly senior officers with increasingly serious expressions. The underwater contact disappeared completely, leaving no trace except confused sailors and mountains of data that refuses to make sense no matter how many times analysts review it. But somewhere in a bunker, buried under concrete and classification levels that most presidents never see clearance for, people are asking questions that don't have comfortable answers. And they're starting to realize that the next war might not be fought with the weapons they know about. If you want the next chapter, I'll continue the investigation.